lovely Sanusplanet community. It's amazing that you all are here today. Again, this is really awesome because today I have a really beautiful guest here, like you can see already if you watch this podcast on video on YouTube. Enric Noguera, welcome to this podcast. Amazing that you take yourself some time to share your story with us. This is really, truly awesome. And I thank you very much for this. Thank you so much. Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, first of all, I really have to say, I'm a bit jealous about your name.
Yeah,
I
welcome.
really love your name, Noguera. Maybe some people don't understand it yet, but Noguera means no war. It means in German kein Krieg. So I love that name. And I originally thought I just have to say something that is completely crazy and insane. And people who know me might think Maggie has a stroke right now. But would you like to marry me just for the name, you know? Let's talk about that later. No, joke aside, this is really awesome. I love your name, but I also love what you do and what you stand for because it's
Thank
really,
you.
really, really amazing. And we will talk about many topics today because you do so incredible work. And just for everyone who listens to understand who Enric is and what he's doing, a very, very short introduction from my side. So Enric, you have been part of, and you organize different actions from street outreach to pressure campaigns and also civil disobedience, what I think is very important. You also made your master's in international law. And that is really cool because now you started working at the Global Animal Law GAL Association, which is like in the end, you work as a strategic advisor, so to improve animal welfare through international legal mechanisms, which is really amazing because I think that is so important that we talk about this side and not just the how we feel about animals, but also what is the law and how can we change the law that might sometimes change a lot even faster. And you have done so many amazing projects. You worked for NGOs like Our Planet There's Two, the Safe Movement, which is creating the plant-based treaty. So we will go into these topics today also. But you're also organizer for the Amsterdam Anti-Fur group, right? And you started also to create, or you helped in creating a new umbrella organization named Abolish Fur Worldwide. So I think everybody who is listening already now understands, okay, you have quite some experience in animal rights movements, animal liberation, far topics, what is a really, really big one and a crazy one. So we will talk about these topics today. But first of all, you haven't been born as an animal rights advocate, I guess, right? So how did you become the person you are today? What happened on the way that changed you to become this person and to be here now today talking about animal rights? What was it? Can you share that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So I have always had this sort of sense of wanting to do something good for the world. And when I was already really, really young, I was very interested in human rights issues and political issues. And so that's why it led me to study international relations. And really getting involved in volunteering for mostly human rights organizations such as Amnesty International or the UN Agency of the Refugees. Also local organizations that were working with, children who didn't have families, like foster cares and stuff like that. And later on, I sort of, was, trying to focus on different issues, but it was just like all so big and there were so many things happening. And while I was on that process of thinking what I wanted to focus on, the veganism just slapped me on the face. And then it sort of like it changed a bit the course of what I wanted to do. And I started focusing first mostly like in conservation, wildlife protection, and then fully while I was doing animal rights activism at the same time, but on a professional level, I kind of wanted to focus a bit more like wildlife protection. And then I realized that, through helping animals, I could help also the planet because, it's really important that we, acknowledge the climate crisis and the role that animal agriculture plays on it and all the human rights violations and all the misery that brings along with it. And so since you cannot be anywhere or everywhere, I had to choose something. And I thought that, the fight for animal rights it just made a lot of sense for me. I cannot compare injustice because I think you cannot just say this is worse than the other thing. I just think that, for every individual that suffers injustice, that's just a different world for every person in every case. But I did think that the injustice that animals go through is just of proportions that are not even that just hard to comprehend for the human brain. And at the same time, it's not just the injustice on itself, but it just causes, as I said, all these wide range of problems. And so, I thought that by tackling this, let's say, one issue, you could tackle a lot more along the way. And so I just felt like it made a lot more sense to do that. And at the same time, a lot of other injustices are at least, mainstreamed. But this one is, very catastrophic, and it's very, very hidden. And so I just wanted to like really make sure that, these sentient, living, innocent beings would have, a voice and would have a platform, and that they would be seen. That was a bit more the train of thought that kind of like went along the way.
Yeah, I completely get you and I feel you because for me, what changed everything was like these connections I had and created with the animals, mostly on the water first, but I really started to see, hey, God, this is insane. Like, was there a moment for you also when you connected to an animal that you felt like, I can't eat you anymore, I can't do this, or I can't participate in this anymore, in this way of lifestyle, what we humans created mostly?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I always connected with animals because I always had like, animals at home, like it's like rabbits and hamsters and dogs and whatnot. But like, obviously, probably you are mentioning, like you're saying, farm animals, and then, yes, it happened one day when I was thinking about this whole thing. For me, veganism, I changed in like a week or something. I started thinking about it. I don't even remember why. And I remember just being in the supermarket one day and just having that package of chicken in my hand. And I was like, yeah, I just cannot take it anymore, So that's a bit how it started. It was not a connection, but more like a realization, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I think these realizations, I see many people worldwide starting to have some kind of inputs that come in their minds, and then they feel like, okay, something's weird. But I think that many people are probably not listening to this yet for a while, as I did neither. I needed quite some long time to really understand and realize that I am part of this. I am creating this destruction and this pain to these animals also, without understanding that it's me taking part of it. And I think that this is always painful to know, oh, I participate in this, even though I don't want to. And that's, I think personally that many people, because of that, need so much time to really step by step get to it, to really change it, right? To say no to any product, let's say. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it takes quite a long time, but sometimes I always have seen people who are really fast changing because they really one moment wake up and think, whoa, okay, no, I want to be part of this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but by all means, everybody has its own process, and just, you cannot judge somebody for that because, there is so many personal circumstances that play a role within that change. But just for me, I'm a person that I used to be a semi-professional athlete. So like, I think that for me, I really go for something when I just have this mentality of, okay, this is the right thing. I just go for it. And I just don't take time, I just like try to make the process fast as possible and go for it. But that just how I operate in general in my life. So I think that's also why the process for me of the change was a bit faster than maybe other people.
Yeah. How was it then for you when you say you're processing quite fast? Do you also process the pain quite fast? I mean, because the pain comes along the way when you're seeing all of these things and when you realize what we do to animals. How is that feeling for you? Like when you feel like, oh my God, what do we do? You process because you want to go into action and do something about it to change it, right? But then this painful feeling of what you all witness, and how is that?
Yeah, I did realize lately that I did not do it in a healthy way because I process all the pain in my life, whether it's through, relationships or death of a family member, of all the stuff that I see with animals. I am good at like compartmentalizing that, and putting it on the side and just to keep going, just keep going, keep going, keep going. But I did realize that I was not dealing with it. I'm just good at putting it to the side and just keep moving forward, and I've been accused of being cold sometimes or whatever, but it's just like at some point you just, if I absorb everything that I see, it's just gonna really get me depressed. And at some point, though, I did realize that pushing it to the side was not really dealing with it. And so I did have a burnout last summer, and I realized that because I passed out in the public transport, and I went to the hospital, and they told me that I was fine. My heart was fine, my brain was fine, and then after seeing my lifestyle, they were like, "Yeah, this is clearly stress and burnout." And so at that time, I did realize that, even though it's a useful skill to have to be able to separate, feelings from actions, it was not a healthy way. So, from that, I started a process of more like digesting it. I'm also been working with psychologists and stuff like that to be able to keep it. So I'm also, because I'm very sentimental, as, probably a lot of most of the activists, most of vegans, I obviously absorb all the feelings a lot, you know what I mean? And even though I'm good at like putting it to the side, it's still within me. and I'm still carrying it with me, So now I found healthier ways to be able to deal with it. And it is painful at times because you have to sit with it and just like, reflect on it and just sort of like take it in. But yeah, it's just part of the process.
Yeah, very much. I think that we as humanity, we have to learn to face the shit we created, because it's a lot of shit. Yeah. And then also we have to learn to hold it, like hold that pain and to deal with it, like to face the shit and the pain, because just then we can get through it and really find solutions to change that. Because if we always look away because it's painful, so we look away, that's kind of a fleeing thing, right? And that's what many people do by fleeing from not having to look at it. You look at it, you know it, but then you act. That is amazing.
Yeah.
But still, you need a healthy way, like you said, to also process it for yourself, because otherwise you carry this around and it's so heavy that sometimes at some point it comes something out like this, what you had last year. And I can so much understand it because I had it too. And I think that is very, very important that activists really are aware of taking also some time to process the things in their minds, to not have to carry everything all the time around. That's very important. What was your first project in the end you participated in animal rights movements?
Yeah. So I started like my street activism. I started with Anonymous for the Voiceless, like a lot of us do. It just was like a nice way to access it. Also, it felt like quite of a safe space in the sense that you could have the option to not talk to people, and so it was like a nice opening door. And for me, I already had experience doing things like that. I was doing exactly the same thing for human rights issues years ago, so it kind of like felt natural for me. And then at the same time, I also started my job at Global Animal Law. And so I had this, it was really nice to be able to work on a project that was doing, more like a global international law and, international legislation, which is, it's interesting, but it's also slower and it's a bit obviously less direct. And at the same time, being able to have the other thing to just, be able to communicate and talk to people and these kinds of things. Yeah.
Did you feel that you changed throughout the years as an activist? For sure you changed, but
yeah.
How did you change? I mean, because when I think back about myself, I was probably very angry at the beginning. I did not put this anger so much out, but in the end, it was somewhere it was there.
Yeah.
Because I was angry on myself because I didn't see it for so long time.
Yeah.
And it was somewhere like this energy was coming with it. But I changed so much in the last years, and I do my activism completely different. It's very different approach. Did you change a lot in the last years as well when you look back?
Yes, I did indeed. I think since I always had this sort of a sense that I wanted to help do something good and I wanted to fight for justice, but I always was doubting on where my place is, as in what am I going to dedicate myself to? And then when I found animal rights, I just felt it so passionately that with that combined, it felt like a click. And then once I started, what I was like, I'm going to try everything that I can. I'm going to do as much as I can to see where my skills can be better used. So my goal has always been, still is, to be able to be and participate on the projects where I can be the most effective, because obviously we have a limited amount of time and energy. So I just want to make sure that I am, that I'm using my time and my skills as effectively as possible. And so I tried a wide range of things. So, street outreach, civil disobedience, pressure campaigns, other stuff that I cannot really mention here, and other things like that, to see, how I felt, how good I was, and finally right now I feel like I am where I am supposed to be. But obviously this is always like a constant progress. So it might well be changing and evolving, and also growing within these roles and creating side projects that go along the way, that complement. But I do feel like right now I have a foot in both camps, if you know what I mean, more one on the legislation, policy making kind of things, and the other one on the, street campaigning, as in, social movements. And so I get information from both sides. I can coordinate both sides, and that puts me in a very sweet spot to be able to just push everything forward a bit,
Yeah, I relate so much to it, because completely different from my side, but I try to do it with the financial support, for example. So I have a foot there and I have a foot in my activism, and I combine these things and try to help others to have this financial support, because we were talking about this too, right? Activists just have such a huge lack of support, or NGOs sometimes too, and I really don't see the point of begging for money and then you receive 50 euros. What should you do with it, right? The money is out there. So this is in the end my way of combining the things that I was in. So I really understand you so much, and I think it's one of the most important things we do. All of the things we learn on the way in our life, all of them, even though the hardcore shitty things, they are so important. If we use them, they are so important for us to create a different approach or create different ways how we can do our activism much more effectively. Do you have a story or a moment in your life that in your activism time maybe that you want to share with us that was maybe one of the craziest or hardest one for you to witness? If you want, you don't have to go into it, but if you want to share something like that, because I think the people who listen to this, many might not know what is happening in this world sometimes.
Yeah, so I did some stuff again that I cannot give too many details, but it just involves doing stuff at night, and one of the things that really caught my attention was already when the night was being almost over and we were just already leaving. We could see the trucks going, and I could just see or hear, because it was like still really early in the morning. So you had no sounds. It was like still quite dark, and you could just hear the screams of these animals being, like being pushed around and being loaded into the truck. And that just literally broke my heart, because it just, I don't know, you could just really feel like the pain, and you can really feel all the, it's just so negative, it just, I cannot even put it into words, it's just like this, desperation combination with like, just suffering and confusion and sadness. I don't know, it's just like so, it just like really shook us, you know what I mean? It was just really like, it goes through all your body, and it's a feeling that even though you hear it from far away, it's like it's touching you directly, you know what I mean? Sometimes as if, it's a music that you really like that touches you like that in a good way, but that's in a completely negative way, and that I still carry, I'm still talking about it, I still like feel it here on my chest, and that's just really something that, really, really stayed with me.
Yeah, I so much get you. I mean, this is so amazing also to talk to you because I like to talk once in a while. I need this also even to talk to people who have been through the same than I was. And it's not like I am surrounded all the time by activists. So it's really, really also a good feeling to know stories from other people, even though the stories are crazy, but it's kind of similar stories I have witnessed, and to talk about these things openly and to share the feelings, what it created in us, deep in us, in the heart. That I think is so important, that you let this out and that you talk to people how much this was painful to feel. That you talk to people who know how painful it can be, but also to share it with people who have never thought about it. I think that some people are just not aware and they never have heard this scream and they don't know how it feels. And if you don't, then it might just support you to go on how you live. And even though you know it might be not the coolest way to live, and there might be other ways. And so that's why I'm really thankful that you share these things. Thank you so much. And I know it's not easy to talk about this stuff. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the FAR. You're doing a lot of anti-FAR campaigns. I can imagine today are also some people here listening to this podcast who might not know how cruel and how bad the FAR industry is. And sometimes what is sold, like I said before, what is sold as fake FAR sometimes is even real, and people buy it because they think it is fake. Some people buy it because they want it to be real, and people think, oh, real FAR, it's so, I don't know, whatever status symbol it creates. But what would you like to share about the FAR industry that might might be needed for people to understand, so they might not buy it anymore, to understand what is behind this cruelty there? You want to share something a little bit there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I don't want to like compare injustices because, even though objectively speaking, looking from the outside, one thing might seem horrible, the other, for the individual that is on that situation, they cannot just be like, oh, mine is better because the other one is worse. It's just not something that it doesn't exist. So, it's bad for every individual within the industry. But from a human being perspective, looking in like from the outside, what goes on within fur farms and especially the slaughter of these animals, the methods is absolutely horrific. And well, I don't know if you want me to give details on the slaughter methods, but
maybe
a lot of these
say something that people understand how cruel this is. You can share something. I think that everybody who listens here today, those who know already, they know already. But those who have never heard about it, I think it is important so they know that this cruelty is really so bad that I'm pretty sure that everybody who listens does not want to give any sense to that.
Yeah, so it depends on the species. So, for example, minks, they would be mostly just killed in gas chambers. So it's like a small box that they could just carry around and just throw them inside. The thing is, for example, minks are animals that are equipped to also breathe or hold their breath underwater for such a long time. So this is very, very painful because they can have high tolerance. So it takes them a long time to actually die, and they die of asphyxiation. And when, there's multiple cases, multiple investigations that when you open the box, a lot of them, they are still alive. So they have to break their necks after having suffered for minutes, just choking on chemicals. So this is one of the cases. They also kill them. One of the most common methods is by vaginally and anally electrocuting them. So they would just stick an iron bar to their anus or vaginas or mouth, and they would just electrocute them to death. That also takes quite some time. It takes like 30 seconds to a minute. And you can see the animal literally shaking, all the hairs spliced like that. And then that is the most horrific way because some animals like raccoon dogs, for example, with these methods, the fur actually gets a bit damaged. So for, certain animals or certain products, the fur needs to be in high quality, and you get that best by skinning the animal alive. So they basically, before even killing the animal, they just hang them upside down by the legs, and they make a cut with a hot knife on the stomach, and they just rip the skin of their body, and the animal is moving, and they just throw them. But the thing is that the animal doesn't die from that. So the animal is literally, you see videos of piles of bodies, and the animal's still moving with, just full of blood, no skin. I don't know. When I saw that, it just shook me to my core, and I was like, yeah, there is, up until that point, I was always focused on vegan activism, as in, a more holistic approach. But at that point, I was like, yeah, this is an issue that I want to get heavily involved. And then, yeah, this is how everything started with the anti-fur. And then also, at that time, I didn't believe so much in one issue campaigns, but I think actually are so important for certain kinds of issues like, I don't know, bullfighting or, aquariums, zoos and stuff like that. And there are also issues that are fairly easy for the main public to get behind. And, I feel like we could definitely mobilize a lot of people to take those issues down. And that would definitely help, create a better narrative. Okay, now these animals are not okay to use. These animals are not okay to use. And so bit by bit, the animals that we use, the circles rings. And so from a strategic point of view, it also makes a lot of sense because the least industries that are exploiting animals, the least species that are exploited, then the ones that are remaining, people will start thinking, okay, if it's now not okay to use these ones, it's not okay to use these ones, not okay. So it's not okay to use foxes, not okay to use whales, not okay to use elephants. Bit by bit, those connections and that circle of compassion starts amplifying for the mainstream public. And at the same time, the industries that remain are also less strong. So, yeah.
Well, first of all, I have to say I have tears in my eyes because I know these pictures, I know them, I know what's happening in the fur industry, and still every time it is so painful thinking about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing it because I really think that people really should hear it. Many have no clue about it. So that's why I asked this question, not because I want to torture anyone to hear this, but because I really think we have these pictures, they are there. We don't want them to happen again. So we need to use these pictures to share with people somehow that they understand this is really not what my values stand for. So I don't want to put any cent in that. So please, guys, everyone who listens here today, please just don't buy fur, neither fake fur if you're not 100% sure. And this is really, really, really important because it's sold as such, but it's not, most of the time it's really real. It's crazy. Well, thank you for sharing this, even though I know it's hard for you also to talk about it. Can you also share, no, I wanted to ask something else before. Like you said with this about all the legal backgrounds, like I know that some people try to change the way animals are treated by probably talking to the public in the way of, hey, please, it's cool what we do, please help these poor animals and don't kill them, it's bad. That's one approach, right? And somehow some people might stop to take part in this, what is cruel, because they are moved and touched in their hearts. but this is not really how the law works. So the people who make a lot of money with it will not just stop by that. So it means it needs legislation, it needs a legal change, right? So that is also what you approach, and I really thank you for that. This is really amazing. How is it possible to, I mean, maybe you have an idea, how is it possible to make it visible that this animal is not allowed anymore to be used? How do you go, what's the approach, how to make that happen?
Yeah, well, there is many ways of doing it. So there is groups like, for example, DXC or Meet the Victims, where they just, for example, they just go into farms and try to make it obvious, and they try to, buy all that media attention and all these trials that activists go through, then get things such as the right to rescue, or showing how cruel these conditions are. So thanks to that exposition, then maybe they get to pressure governments into making it, passing some welfare legislation. In my case, I work at the Animal Safe movement at the moment. I'm working specifically on the plant-based treaty campaign, and we do that by also taking a bit more also of an environmental approach. And so we work with all different kinds of stakeholders, from institutions, from universities to the European Space Agency and institutions like that, all the way to local and national governments. We also have an observer status at the UN, so we go to all the climate conferences. We're involved with the constituencies. And so what we try to do is just simply lobby. That's basically what it is, just a lobbying process, just trying to talk to people, just trying to find the right ones, because there is always, surprisingly enough, like a right person, maybe not even a vegan, but like a person who's really like-minded on the inside that might want to work. And so that's where it starts. And then from here, the process starts where, just every time it's a bit different, but a lot of things can be achieved. And the last thing, one of the last achievements that we had in the plant-based treaty was the endorsement from the city of Edinburgh. And they made an impact assessment of all the things that they could do. And now they're going to pass, some pieces of legislation proposals that they are going to, change things within the city and, and within just, animal farming, to try to already set the course for creating a plant-based food system. And so other institutions, for example, companies that we work for, they switch their menus to fully vegan or plant-based by default and stuff like that, so it can be small changes to big changes. But at the end of the day, this project has a very pragmatic approach, because if we look at it, the number of animals that die every year, it just keeps going up. And so, whatever we do, that's the reality, the situation that, if we want to know if our activism is effective, maybe it is, but the truth is that the animals killed every year are just going up and up and up. So at least with this approach, where we're just trying to create places that, stop doing it, stop participating on it, completely change the dynamic, change the mindset, and also create that change within the law as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you have been talking already about the plant-based treaty, can you explain what it exactly is? Or I mean, the people who listen today, there might be some people who have a business, people who have a restaurant, or people who go to restaurants and shops and whatever. How can they involve it, or what is it about, and how can people be part of it or take part of it?
Right. Yeah. So in 2015, the Paris Agreement was signed to limit our emissions to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so the Paris Agreement aims at targeting everything, all the environmental destruction that comes from animal agriculture. And so it pretends to be, it aims to be companion to the Paris Agreement. So the goal would be for global leaders to negotiate an agreement that would guide the transition of our food systems from animal agriculture to plant-based food systems. Obviously, we have created a treaty that has several points, and all these points are what we consider are the best practices and how that treaty should eventually look like. However, as we know, when this goes to negotiation at the UN, then there is many stakeholders, many parties involved. So the eventual treaty, the final treaty, might look potentially different of what it looks like right now and what we would like it to be. But you can start working from there. And so the way that we want to accomplish, you would say like, okay, yeah, but this is a bit unrealistic. So the way that we work to get those leaders to actually, sit down at the table and actually negotiate such an agreement is by creating a bottom-to-up pressure. And so we started working a few years ago with, mostly individuals, companies and organizations to try to get endorsed the treaty. And then we eventually moved on to the plant-based treaty 1.5 that we call it, as in for 1.5 Celsius. And that basically means that we also are now requesting action with that endorsement. And so now we're also working a lot more with city campaigns, national governments, being involved at the UN. And when, any party that we work with, when they endorse the treaty, endorsing the treaty simply means that you agree with the idea of eventually having an agreement negotiated. So that's great because it gives us support and it opens the door for us, the more support that we have. However, it would be also great if you endorse with action, because then endorsing without action is a bit like, okay, it's nice, but it helps us for the global campaign. But what we want to do is create change as we move forward, create change with every party that we negotiate or that we work with. And so, for example, if we work with universities, when we ask them to endorse the plant-based treaty, we also ask them to make changes such as change the food in their cafeterias or incorporate more lectures that talk about animal agriculture, food policy, and stuff like that. It can be a wider range of things, and every case is a bit different, but that's a bit how it changes. The good thing about the plant-based treaty is that it's called the positive approach activism, which we do it by, sharing food and, and rather than focusing on the problems, creating the solutions, we are bringing solutions, having a very problem solving pragmatic approach. And that also allows activists to, it doesn't burn you out as much, because the other ones are always really negative and really like, I get it, I get it. So that's a very nice way for activists also to feel comfortable, and activists that maybe would not do other things would be doing this. And also the good thing is the plant-based treaty has so many options. You could do so many different things that I think everybody could, find a different part of the campaign that they would, feel comfortable, feel happy doing. So I would just suggest email the website, see if there is any group already around your site, or otherwise just email the website and we'll be happy to help you start.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I will definitely put the website also in the show notes so everybody can just click on that. And I'm pretty sure that with Sanusplanet we will somehow take part of it anyway.
Awesome.
So this is really, really cool. I love it. Hey, we are quite late already with the podcast. We have so much more to share. I think that we will definitely make a second part one day. But I have 2-3 more questions. Can you share some of the most biggest achievements you reached so far in the last years as an activist? What did change, or what have you seen changing?
Yeah. So, for example, when I was working before at NART, at our Planet 2, I was coordinating the global campaign of the NART event. So it's the National Animal Rights Day. And when I started, we had around 50 cities or like 40 cities doing these kinds of events. And within 6 months, me and my team managed to get over 115 cities around the world. All over the world. So we got South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and, we created that beautiful connection with so many thousands of activists doing this thing, uniting on that specific day for animals all around the world. And that is just something really beautiful to see, because it just shows, first of all, being able to see all these people working together on that specific day. It just shows that the power of people have when we organize. It just also shows how many people there are out there that actually care, because as an activist, you can feel quite lonely. So I think that was very, very beautiful to see. And other big changes have been just simply, as I said, this endorsement of, big politicians getting involved in campaigns and actually making changes themselves, pushing for change of legislation themselves. The anti-fur movement in Europe, it started like very slow. I mean, the anti-fur movement has always existed in Europe. There have always been groups doing stuff in Europe. But it feels like in the last year, thanks to the work that, everybody around Europe has been doing, we have been able to create this umbrella of many, many cities working together. And again, just creating that pressure and just, showing the power that people have when we unite.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. When we unite, I saw that. I mean, for everyone here listening, I met Enric at the Animal Rights Conference in Luxembourg last week, and it was really, really amazing also there to be among so many activists who are really active, who do so much, who care so much. It is like sometimes, like you said, when you feel alone as an activist because around you there is not so much going on. Maybe don't feel like this is everywhere like that. There are so many people out there doing stuff, and we just need to build this network and be connected to these people, because that gives a lot of energy. And now we have already a new guest.
No, I guess.
Nice.
Very good.
Just listening, just the cat just jumped up. How is she called?
He is Punko. He's Punko.
Oh, cool. Give him a nice hug for me too, please.
I will.
Well, I think that we really need to have this network and create this, and that's what you do most of the time already. And I love it. So thank you so much for also giving other
Of
people hope,
course.
because I'm pretty sure that your work and what you do and how much you act for the rights of animals and for people and for the environment, in the end, it's all one. That
Yeah.
this gives a lot of hope to other people. So how is it with your hope? How do you feel? Because I can imagine sometimes, ooh, it's a hard one. And maybe
Yeah.
some days it's a bit better. How does it feel right now?
Yeah, so this is very a personal thing for myself because I don't want to depress people or tell them that they should feel as I feel. But for me, my relationship with hope is hope creates also disappointments for myself. So I think, after all the things that I've seen and all the negative things that I experienced, I lost hope completely. However, what keeps me going is love. I have this love and hate relationship with humanity because we are capable of incredible things, but we're also incapable of the worst things. So rather than having hope that one day it might change or that, the work that we do might eventually change things, I take it as in, we have so much potential, and all the love that I have for this planet and for the animals and for people is what keeps me going to, get the better out of them. You know what I mean? And rather than trying to change, I took it as in I rather inspire. I just do my best. I work as hard as I can, and just try to inspire people around me to join me or people in front of me to change and create positive change and be the best version of themselves. And for example, I really try to have as much compassion as I can. And a lot of times it's really hard to master compassion for certain individuals. But at the end of the day, most people are just trapped within a system. They've just been ignorant, same as we were before. You know what I mean? So it's also important to keep that in mind, and that a lot of people are just not evil, are just ignorant, and they just had less privileges than we had, maybe less education, maybe they were born in a different place of the world that they were not able to have these connections that we had. And that's just important to keep in mind. And I do think there is maybe some evil people, like some CEOs or some policymakers, whatever. But at the end of the day, I believe that in general, humanity is pure. Same as a child. I don't believe a child is born racist or is born, species or anything like that. It's taught. So I don't think humans are evil themselves. So it's just a matter of focusing on all the good that we can have and that we can be, and just trying to get that shine out of us, because at the end of the day, it's beneficial for everyone, including ourselves.
I so much agree with you. This is really amazing. And I understand it when sometimes the hope is completely gone or lost. But in the end, I think that's what I wanted to ask you also. Where do you get your energy from to keep on going and going, right? And I have the feeling that when you do good stuff and you feel that you have been able to do good stuff, it feels good. And then you want to do more of that because it feels
Yeah.
good. So I think that this is also something that drives me on all the time when I feel this is just beautiful and it created some change. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for your words. Thank you so much. Is there
Thank
something
you.
you would like to share still with the community? Something that I didn't ask or something that is important to you? What message do you want to share still today? So this.
Yeah, just one thing, just on that note, also what I just said, we do all see infighting in the community. We all do see vegans or activists attacking each other, creating conflicts. And I think, we should all be a lot more compassionate towards ourselves as individuals, towards the people that we share this fight with and this movement with. And it's not a matter of being friends or even liking each other. It's a matter of learning how to respect each other and how to work together, and just really, really being honest and transparent with each other. And for the people who are not active, get active, because we need as many people as possible. And we are all on the same boat together. And there is always something that you can do. You don't have to do one specific thing. There is so many things that you can do. You're good at social media, making videos, doing outreach, whatever. But we need you. So get active.
Yeah, I think that's amazing final words. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Enric, for your time. This was really amazing to talk to you. And I hope that everyone who was listening today, please share this with your friends, share the knowledge or share the podcast, whatever. It's just important that we get out, that we get this message out. So thank you for your time. It was really
Thank you,
good.
Magdalena. Thank you so
I'm
much.
very happy
Have
to
a
be
grateful
connected
day.
with you. And I'm
Same,
sure that
same.
we will definitely hear each other very soon again.
I'm convinced. All right. Have a good day. Ciao, ciao,
Bye,
Magdalena.
bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. All of you.